We are back again with another look at some of the top 10 teams that are having disastrous seasons. Today, we've already done the Raiders, but today we will be looking at the New York Giants. We'll move on and take a quick look at the draft order, which could change. It could change, but there they are. The New York Giants sat at the second pick, 2 and 11. Adam, this team with a few games left of the season, they are now looking in pure tank mode. Half of their top players are on IR. Whether they're actually injured or not, I don't know. And they're putting DeVito out there, and they're then in games, and then they find a way just to make sure they don't win it at the end and lose. So everything's pointing. They've released Daniel Jones. Everything's pointing towards new quarterback at New York. Adam, how have they found themselves from being in the playoffs not that long ago to giving their quarterback a big deal to move on and maybe qualify for the playoffs again, getting a number one wide receiver, and then finding themselves back at the top of this draft once again?
Well, you should know what's going on in New York, given the fact you're a fan of theirs. But I will, from what I saw, I find it amazing. I mean, the record that they have early on in seasons is appalling. It's so bizarre. And this goes all the way back to like Ben McAdoo in 2017. It's so bizarre. And really, they've been a bit of a mess since Tom Coughlin went. And they've sort of struggled. And it's kind of just been a procession of different head coaches in McAdoo, then Pat Sharma, Joe Judge, and then Brian Daboll coming in. And apart from in 2022, when in the first 8 games they went 6-2 under the Brian Daboll's first year, the rest of it has just been an absolute nightmare. And they just can't get off to a good start. And it's really strange when you look at it that's what happens to them. So it does feel like that's been a problem for them. The irony of the whole thing is that the 1 year that they did have a good start is probably the worst thing that could have happened to them. Because what they went and did is they basically ended up with a brand new head coach in Daboll. They got into the playoffs. They suddenly thought, we've got a quarterback that can do something. And it all just kind of fell away again in the next 2 years, where 2023 they went 2-6. 2024 they went 2-6 in the first 8 games, and they just sort of like it all fell apart. And because of that, they signed Daniel Jones, thinking, okay, he can do something with Daboll. We can do something here. And then, as you well know, probably the best player that they had in Saquon Barkley, they franchise tagged him, and obviously then gave him the opportunity to see if he could make some money elsewhere, and the rest of it is kind of history on that. And I think that it just goes to show an organization that is constantly changing their head coaches, constantly trying to find the right guy, not really giving them enough time, you could argue, and it just all falling apart. I mean, the fact that someone like Pat Sharma, he was there for two and a bit years, Joe Judge 2 seasons, Brian Daboll's now done 3, and there's lots of talk about, is he going to go, is he not? And it just kind of feels like that's not the right idea now. It's like if you just keep doing this, it's not going to work for you. So I think that's how they've ended up in this mess, where it's like just this constant procession of head coaches thinking that they can find the next thing. I had a quick look. Obviously, Joe Shane has been there for, he's done 3 drafts now as your general manager. The one thing I would say is that I think that some of this is revisionist. It is, when you look at it. And at the time, you can understand why he's gone for the guys he's gone for, and it's just not really worked out. So, like Kayvon Thibodeau, Evan Neal in 2022, they were your 2 first-round picks. They've not really worked out. Thibodeau's been okay. Evan Neal has barely done anything, to be honest, and that's a shame. Wandale Robinson was a second-round pick. He looked okay, but nothing fantastic. In 2023, again, you've got like Deontay Banks, John Michael Schmitz, Jalen Hyatt. They've all kind of like, I think they've been okay, but they haven't really got involved enough. They haven't really been great. And I think that's kind of the problem that he had in them first two drafts, where it's almost like he's drafted players that have been okay, and that's not good enough. And that's a bit of a problem. However, 2024 draft, Malik Neighbours, Tyler Nubin, Drew Phillips, who we both really liked out of Kentucky. He's been really good. Tyrone Tracy's been great as a late round running back, and also Theo Johnson has shown some bits as well, so he looks good. So when I was looking at the general manager and the head coach as well with Brian Daboll, and the whole point of this exercise is kind of to decide whether or not we think we should change them or keep them or whatever. I think that Shane he's clearly not done great, but at the same time he had a really good one last year draft, and it would be, I think it would be wrong to get rid of him after that draft. And now I think that he needs to be able to draft his guy, his quarterback. And I think that after last year, he's probably earned the right to do that myself. And I just think, as I said, with all the head coach changes that you've had, just what are you getting that's any better? That was kind of what I looked at. I looked at the guys, and we've said it in other shows, and you go through them and you look at like Ben Johnson, you look at Liam Cohen or Joe Brady or any of these offensive guys or Mike Vrabel, and I just sort of thought to myself, which one's better? Which one hasn't got? Which one's got more experience? Which one's got more exciting play calling? Which one, like in their history of being a coach? And the answer is none of them, really. I don't think any of them have. So I very much believe that the idea is to keep it the same, keep Daboll in, keep Shane in, but actually let them draft the quarterback now and give them the opportunity to really sort of like kick on with that. Because we'll talk about the team needs and different things, but when you look at the roster and stuff like that, I think their defense has been all right this year. I don't think it's been too bad, but the offense has struggled, and the reason it struggled is because the quarterback's just not been there, and so I think they both deserve the opportunity to have another go.
Yeah, I think that defense has been really good, and it's got a lot of youngsters on it with a lot of potential as well across the board on that defense. We'll take a look at it soon, but I'm with you. I'm in the same camp. I do believe if someone's got to fall on the sword because we've had such a bad season, and Saquon's had such a good season, and Daniel Jones hasn't worked out. So if someone's got to fall on the sword because of those disasters, I'd rather it be Joe Shane rather than Daboll, because I don't think it's Daboll's fault there, GM decisions. But I agree with you. I'd like to keep both of them. His draft was the best draft we've seen from anybody in terms of hitting on every single round. That's rare. And I think what he did in the previous drafts as well, I liked them. When the draft did come to a close and we had shows on here and said, how'd you feel about the Giants? I was like, yeah. Loved Jalen Hyatt, think he's good. Loved Evan Neal, tackle from Alabama was fantastic. Just hasn't worked out in the NFL. And Thibodeau, I thought, was incredible. So I was well pleased with that as well. So those previous drafts, I like Wandale Robinson. I think he's a great number 2, and I think he's played well this season in parts. So I like the players. I think they're workable, and you've got to also look at what else he's done. He's managed to turn Kadarius Toney into what I think was Brian Burns. I think he did that. So you've got to remember, he brought Brian Burns in through picks, and he managed to get rid of Kadarius Toney for something back. So you've got to look at all the areas of what he's done. I think he managed to do some deals to get that O-line. That O-line went from the worst O-line to an O-line that looked fantastic at the start of the year until it got injuries. So a Daboll, if you're going to start again, what's Daboll known for? He's known for having young quarterbacks and getting the best out of potential and turn it into greatness. He did that with Josh Allen. We've seen him do it with Daniel Jones. You know, Daniel Jones was awful until Daboll managed to get that season out of him, and everyone bought into it. So I think that was Daboll that did that. And then we had a little run with Tommy DeVito and won some games. Now, Tommy DeVito is not a starting NFL quarterback at all, yet we won games with him. I think that's down to Daboll and what he can draft up. So keep both of them is what I'd like. And it looks like we're doing that because Shane's been at Colorado's games. He's been at Colorado's practices. So I think they're asking him to scout out Shedeur Sanders and look at him. So it looks like they're letting him pick. So that makes sense. They're not sending any other executives that might still be in the team. So keep both of them, please. Let's take a look at some of the roster.
Yeah. So to me, when you look at the Giants roster and you see what's there, I mean, obviously, you know, a few of these guys are injured now and not on it, but it feels to me when it comes to team needs, obviously the quarterback is the number one need that they need to go for. I think that running back is something that they need to look at. I think that Tyrone Tracy's been great. I'm not sold on Eric Gray and Devin Singletary. I know that he's Daboll's guy, but I just don't really think he's been very good. I think that they could use some help on the O-line. I think that personally, I think John Runyon has been okay, and he hasn't been too bad for you. But as we were saying about Evan Neal, it's not really worked. So right tackle is something that I think they need to look at. I would argue that a wide receiver would be useful for some depth. It's not the most important thing that they need to go for, but just for a bit of depth, I think that they could do with that. But and then really, I mean, I don't know how you feel really, but like I say, I think again, kind of similar to when we spoke about the Raiders. I think that defensively they're in a pretty good, okay spot, and it's more about depth and just sort of like trying to find some sort of that. I feel like the defense is going to be more of a draft thing and trying to find some depth there just to help them out. Whereas for maybe free agency is going to be about looking at potential O-line help. I think it is a big one, and this could be a common thing with a lot of these teams. I think O-line, there's been some bad O-lines this year, and I feel like the Giants, not horrific, but I feel like they need a bit of help there.
Yeah, once Andrew Thomas went down, the whole O-line, you know, you got to shuffle it round, and then it just didn't look the same. I think he did a great job in bringing in a couple of older, more experienced guys, and they've done really good for us this season. But I really love the idea of us moving Neal to a guard position and bringing in a really solid right tackle. I think that will really help the O-line move forward. And then defensively, when you look at it, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, Azeez Ojulari, Deontay Banks, Drew Phillips, they're all youngsters. All of them are Burns is the oldest at 26, I think. So, and then all the rest of recent draft picks are rookie deals as well. So I think just adding to that, we've got Isaiah Simmons as well. So I think just adding to that just helps. So I think, I do think we need some help at cornerback. I think cornerback's been a big issue for us. I think Deontay Banks has been good, but made some big mistakes. I also think, Newman's not on that list that we've got in front of us, but I think he's been good. He might need some help at safety maybe at some point. So some help in the secondary at some point would be good. Maybe we could look into maybe bringing in an older guy from free agency at cornerback to help Drew Phillips and Deontay Banks improve their game and move up better. But I think we're going to go down a similar line to what we went with the Raiders, where we go quarterback, O-line, running back, potentially. I think you do need a change of pace running back, maybe a big, solid guy who can just get it in the end zone and let Tracy do a bit more of that catching and rushing. But someone to help out. I think it's really, when you look at the likes of the Detroit Lions and what they're doing with Monty and Gibbs, and what the Steelers have done with Warren and Nagy and things like that. I think you need two everywhere now. I think that is a good way for two top end running backs. But that for me, that's where our needs would be. Adam, free agency. Do you think cornerback is where we might dip into this?
Yeah, I was just going to say as well, Adoree Jackson is a free agent as well. So that's another reason why, for some depth as well, that you're going to need to look in that position. Now, the Giants are they currently have about 40 million in cap space. So they do have a little bit of money there, but they don't have loads. So we do kind of have to be a little bit careful with what we want to go for. But there are quite a lot of corners that are actually decent that are available this year. I think, Javarius Ward has had a bit of a rough season this year and hasn't really played a great deal, but he would be available. DJ Reed, I think he's struggled at the Jets quite a bit, so I don't know whether they would want to be going out and spending that much on him. But if you want a guy who I think who's played really, really well, he's not the most expensive on the list, but he is still he is worth a bit. And he is getting up there in age now. He is 30, but he's not insane. But Rasul Douglas, who played for the Packers and is now at the Bills, I think he's been great at the Bills and he's done really, really well. And I think that maybe someone like that might be quite useful to help the likes of Drew Phillips and Deontay Banks, who are a bit younger as well. So someone like him, I think, would be great to replace Adoree Jackson.
Yeah, it's a perfect one for me. Pick the name off there that I'd be happy with and want. So I like that. I was looking a little bit further down the list. There is some nice names on there, but they're just adding to depth rather than experience. I think, and a few of them have got injury worries with them as well. If we could stretch to Byron Murphy as well, I think that would be a good. I think although he's 26, he's still got a lot of experience already within the NFL. So one of them might be good. Similar price there as well. So any other positions you want to look at in free agency for? Do you think O-line might be one to look at?
Yeah, so obviously you were talking about moving Thibodeau into the guard, and so I just had a quick look.
Not moving Thibodeau into guard because
not Thibodeau. Evan Neal. I was close. Away from right tackle and moving him into, and so finding a right tackle. And I was just having a look at them. How would you fancy Mekhi Becton?
He will not go anywhere near us. When he returned to play us, was at the Eagles, and he returned to play us recently, he said he hates MetLife and doesn't want anything to do with it. And I don't think he wants to be anywhere near New York. So as good as I think he is, and his ceiling is high for me, he's not coming anywhere near New York if we offered him anything. I think he's saying no to that straight away.
Okay, well, don't have Mekhi Becton.
I would like him, but there's not
many guys. There's a few guys out there, but there's not many. I mean, Trenton Brown could be someone that, I think that, in fairness to the Bengals, although defensively they've struggled, the O-line's actually held up pretty well, and Brown's been all right. I mean, you could go for someone like him if you wanted to go for that. I don't. Other than that, I suppose you would be looking at a guard instead, and maybe leaving Evan Neal out there as right tackle. And when you look at that, there are quite a lot of guards out there that you could potentially go and get yourself. I think like Nate Herbig has been pretty good for the Steelers this year. I think he's someone that you could look at. I've already mentioned James Daniels. I think that he's going to be a really sought after guard for a lot of teams. There's quite a few. So maybe that's one that you could go for. And actually, one that I think he struggled, but the whole O-line has struggled, and I do think that maybe a new team might help him. Tevin Jenkins from the Bears. I think he's got potential there, and he's only 26 at the moment, so it'd be 27 when you play next year. But I feel like he's someone who would be worth having a look at, and he's quite cheap as well.
I think also we will need some help on the interior D line as well. Outside of Sexy Dexy, there's not much to get excited about. So I think we might need some help in there. Sebastian Joseph would be the one for me that I would like to get in. I don't know whether there's anyone that you would. I mean, I think BJ Hill came from us, didn't he? He used to be a Giant, didn't he?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a few guys there that you could go for. I think Javon Kinlaw's been okay. He wouldn't be too bad. He's not been amazing, but he's been all right. You could have him. Just sort of like looking down the list because you don't want to really be spending loads on them. But
I think we might. The draft, we might be able to pick one up there. It's well worth looking at what it was on free agency. Well, should we take a look at the draft then, Adam?
Yeah, go for it.
All right.
Yeah, I think with the draft, it is very much QB, isn't it? Is what we want to be looking at for the Giants, and then we will see who's available after that.
I'm gonna have to use a different site for this one. Right, we are the New York Giants.
Yeah.
We are doing 3 rounds. Let's go. Starts, because I've just looked at it and was like, Shedeur Sanders is still there. There we go. Shedeur Sanders has already gone off the board. We need it. We need a quarterback. So yeah, the next one is Cam Ward, isn't it? I think he would fit in at New York. I think he's a big personality. His stats this season, the fact that when he was at Miami this season, he was behind in lots of games because his defense was letting him down. And he rallied through and put that team on his shoulders and pushed through and came back and had game-winning drives to win games for them, which is what you want in the NFL. He's a Heisman finalist, much deserved. And some people have him as their number one guy in this draft. I suppose it's whatever you like the most, but you can't argue with the talent that's there, and he's done it at every single school. I think he was a no-star recruit out of high school, and then has just worked his way up to this big school eventually, and shown what he can do in college football. So Cam Ward for me, if that's the case.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Would you be happy with that as a Giants fan?
Yeah. I got the second best quarterback is fine. I think Cam Ward is. If Shedeur Sanders turns out to be incredible, and there's nothing we can do about that. It is what it is. But Cam Ward is the next best one for me. I don't think trading out of it and maybe getting a Garrett Nussmeier or Jalen Milroe or Carson Beck or whatever you want later on in the draft is wise. I think, if that happens, Daboll will probably end up getting sacked, which we don't want. So Cam Ward, I think he will work perfectly with Daboll as well. I think some of his attributes will fit nicely and be good there. I think, as I said, I'd probably want to go down the tackle route, please. Well, there's a guy there I do really, really like, and he plays right tackle as well. So that seems great. And that's Emory Jones Jr. from LSU. LSU's probably got the best O-line in college at the minute with Will Campbell and Emory Jones. Lots of people were talking about him before the season started, being well worthy of a first-round pick. A lot of people have got him going at the back end of the first as well. So to snag him at the top of the second is good for me. And we can see that, when we did the Raiders one earlier, Booker went with the first pick of the thing. So maybe we know something. But yeah, Emory Jones for me would be a good pick. Get Cam Ward, protect him. We've got Malik Neighbors, we've got Wan'Dale Robinson. Yeah. Maybe we can. We've got Jalen Hyatt as well. I think you can use all of those guys. So
I mean,
getting that one.
Slayton will be a free agent as well, but obviously, like there's going to be guys out there that you can bring in on the free agency market. So there's no reason why you can't get yourself a depth piece at wide receiver there, or even it go later on in the draft as well. So
Getting that 1-2 punch at running back is a big thing for me. I think we need, although Tracy has been great, I think having that, two of my guys are there, two of them, both Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson are both there. I can't pick between the two of them.
surely you want the better running back though, don't you? The one that's above him.
Caleb Johnson?
Yeah.
No, I want one of Quinshon Judkins or Travion Henderson. They're better prospects, mate. They are. They're both incredible. I love both of them.
Yeah, but that's just because you're an Ohio State fan. That's all that is. There's nothing.
Judkins has only been there for this season. Last
Yeah,
year,
one season in it, and Henderson's done too.
He was at Ole Miss last year, and I loved him then. So you know, I'm not fully biased on this one. I mean, Dylan Sampson's there as well. I think he's incredible as well. Further down, just proves the depth at running back. But I've put Henderson. I think Judkins will be gone in the second, realistically. So I for this, I'd take him if he's there. But I think Henderson is probably the guy that we would get in the third. So if Judkins is there, let's go for it. Hey, I'm you know, A, B plus A. It's looking good for us.
It's obviously better on this site. There you go. You see, we get better grades on this one. So. No, I think that all makes a lot of sense, and it's definitely something that you want to be doing. And you know, you've got your quarterback for the future there in Cam Ward. You got yourself some help, like we did with the, you know, like you said, it kind of feels similar to the Raiders one, but it is something that we thought would happen with a few of these teams. Cam Ward, great. You've got some help there for him with Emory Jones, and then obviously Judkins as your running back. And, you know, we've brought in some guys in free agency as well. I mean, Rasul Douglas is great at corner. There's lots of guys on the O-line and some defensive inside guys as well. So, you know, 40 million to spend. You're not going to spend it all, but it's, there's quite a few there. So that it does go to show. And also, the good, like we said, the thing I think all Giants fans need to have a little bit of hope about is the fact that defensively they've looked okay this season. They haven't been awful, and so I think that, you know, it's not all doom and gloom as opposed to maybe some of these others.
I understand that our division is now harder than it's ever been now. Washington are good, but I do think that we don't need a lot to put ourselves in the mix of being a wild card team yet again, with how strong our defense is and how good our rookie prospects have been with Neighbors, Tracy and Theo Johnson. I think it wouldn't be out of the realm to say that we could compete for maybe second, third spot in our own division next year and be competitive by the end of the year, rather than it being all over before it's got started. So I think that's what we'll be aiming for, and that'd be really good to be in that mix in our own division. So really looking forward to it next season if that is the case. So yeah, all good for the Giants. I think the future is looking bright with the amount of youngsters we've got.
Yeah.